Hearts of Fire and The Nanny won't be seen tonight. Please stay tuned for this special presentation.
Hello, this is Billy Core from the Carolina Circle Mall Wiki. Today is Tuesday, November the 26th of 2013, just a few hours from my birthday, and for those of you who don't know, this is actually my 400th video here on my Road Geek channel, my main channel. And you may also notice that the camera quality seems a little bit different. That's because I'm coming to you via my 1996 JVC VHS camcorder. I thought that would be something a little bit different. But the purpose of this video is for those of you who saw my new video last night on my Core Billy 89 channel, aka my Christian channel, I discussed how I feel that Thanksgiving, the holiday, just isn't what it used to be a long time ago, unfortunately. But then I got to thinking, why not take a look back at what this time of year was like 20 years ago? So I take you back to exactly 20 years ago today, November 26, 1993. On November 26 of 1993, probably one of the most significant events of Carolina Circle Mall's history occurred, at least in my opinion. At 11:30 in the morning, Santa Claus parachuted into the mall parking lot to kick off the 1993 Christmas shopping season. And he parachuted from a helicopter and landed at the main entrance, which you've probably seen a picture of. And at 12 o'clock lunchtime, Santa Claus had a meal with various children at the mall, in the mall's food court right by the carousel. Now, I was not there, unfortunately, so I missed that. However, I do remember watching it on WFMY News 2 that night, the 6 o'clock news. Because I saw the video of him parachuting, but from what I saw, it looked like Santa Claus's sleigh flying over the mall. Now that was a very, very interesting experience, and that was the day before my 4th birthday, and here I am the day before my 24th birthday. But this video isn't about Carolina Circle Mall per se. Recently, I have gained an interest in old-style Toys R Us stores, particularly the one across from Carolina Circle Mall that I probably went to just as much as the mall. You know, it was, it had a slogan, you know, I want to be a Toys R Us kid. Well, back then, Toys R Us was pretty much a paradise for children. They had, pretty much every toy that was popular, and even the ones that are not popular. They had the video games and all that cool stuff. And I just really got to thinking, you know, Toys R Us, if you look at an old Toys R Us from the 90s, you pretty much see a time capsule of 90s nostalgia. And I was browsing around eBay about a month ago, and I came across an interesting little item. It was a catalog, a Christmas catalog from November 1993 for Toys R Us. And that was one of those moments on eBay where I knew I just had to have it no matter what it takes. And so I bought it. It took almost 2 weeks to get it, even though it just came from about several hundred miles away. Thank you, Post Office. But here tonight, I have with me the catalog for Toys R Us from 1993. And here's the back of it. It mentions some Toys R Us stores up in Pennsylvania. And it's 71 pages, and each page is nostalgia like no else. And so tonight, I'm not sure when this video will be uploaded, but as people are getting ready for this ridiculous shopping that's going to happen on Thursday, on Thanksgiving, which I think is sickening. I think we should take a look back at what kids were wanting for Christmas 20 years ago. So, let's go to the scanner. I cannot believe I just said that. Okay, here's the cover you saw a while ago on video. And first of all, I apologize for the audio quality. I'm not like Chris Rogers. I don't have a good DJ mixer, so I'm having to use my webcam mic. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting toys here on this catalog. Cover, that is. I see on the top there we got a Model 2 Sega Genesis with, I believe, a Sonic 2 cartridge. And on the bottom right, I'm sort of ashamed to admit this, I had that when I was back in 1993, when I was that age. I didn't have the girl, but I had the Barney doll. Yeah. Trolls, leave your tongues at home. But yeah, now we're not going to look at all 70 some pages of this catalog because we'd be here all night, but I've picked out 30 pages out of here that I think are kind of interesting to look at, so let's go to the first one, shall we? Okay, here's the first page that you get to when you actually turn the cover open. This is just a little page showing off some random VHS tapes because it was the 90s. DVDs hadn't been invented yet. and I already see a lot of tapes I used to have back then. I probably had most of the Barney tapes, yes. I think I had most of the Thomas tapes on the bottom left. As for the Disney tapes, I had 2 of them. I had Pinocchio and 101 Dalmatians. Interesting story about the Pinocchio tape. Back in 1993, I think it was, even when I was a kid, only 3 years old, I had a little TV in my bedroom. It was like a 12-inch Montgomery Ward TV from like 1987, I want to say. I think it even still had the knobs on there you had to turn. And it also had a VCR hooked up to it, and I happened to have a tape of Pinocchio. So one night, in the middle of the night, this was like 1 or 2 in the morning, I guess. I couldn't tell time back then. I got this crazy idea to watch Pinocchio, and I watched it, and I watched the full movie that night while my parents were asleep. And then I got the crazy idea to watch it again, and so I did. And then, third time wasn't so successful because a couple of minutes in, my dad came in and told me to go to bed. So yeah, it was amazing back then, VHS tapes. I still collect them because there's tapes with lots of gold on them that you just can't find on DVDs. And they will never be on DVDs. So, yeah, let's go to the next page, shall we? There are several pages in this catalog just like this at the beginning. This is page 13, by the way. This is some coupons that you could use to save some money on toys. These, unfortunately, expired November 30th, 1993, so if you hope to use these, you're roughly 20 years too late. And the reason I chose this particular page is because there's a few toys in here I actually had back then. At the top left, you see an easel. It's a FisherPrice toy easel that I got back in early '94, I want to say, that I think I hardly ever used because then and now, I've never been that artistic, unfortunately. And right next to it, on the top right, is a FisherPrice Grow With Me picnic table. I used that thing for years. I got it in 1993, and I used it until 97 at least. I was quite old when I stopped using it. I guess I was about 7. Got a lot of use out of it. We'd even put it in the living room, and I would eat my supper in there. I was a weird kid, yes. And some FisherPrice, some 1, 2, 3 skates. Unfortunately, I never had those. My mom would never let me roller skate until I was about 10 years old, and when I finally got some rollerblades for my Christmas that year, and I learned then and there that rollerblades or roller skates, no matter what, were not for me. And I want to say I had that Mattel McDonald's Magic Hamburger Snack Maker. It looks familiar. I think I remember them being advertised on television. But yeah, that's back when even McDonald's back then was cooler. It was unique. But next page. Yes, okay, this is the girls section, but hey, come on. I believe I believe both genders deserve as much attention as possible. So yeah, what's interesting about this is I actually had one of these. Yes, I did have a girl toy, but it didn't really seem like one at the time until I got this catalog last month. But it's the bottom right one, that all-in-one kitchen center from FisherPrice. I got that for Christmas in 1993, and I remember playing with it quite a bit. And I have this video of me from Christmas morning in '93 playing with it in the living room. And I kept on complaining how I kept pretending that it didn't work and that I needed to call the plumber. Well, I pretended that I called the plumber, but the plumber was sick. It's hard to find good help these days, and back then apparently. I believe this is the same McDonald's thing we saw in that coupon a while ago. That's the McDonald's Happy Meal makers. They had several different types. They had the Magic Hamburger Snack Maker, Magic Cookie Maker, Magic French Fry Snack Maker, and Magic Shake Maker. I don't think I ever had any of those. I might have back then. I do remember seeing them advertised. I believe there's a guy here on YouTube that has video reviews of these McDonald's Happy Meals makers. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check them out. And also on the bottom left, I'm ashamed to admit this, but is an easy bake oven that I always wanted when I was a kid, but I was too embarrassed to ask for it because it's obviously intended for girls. But eventually, I got the next best thing when I was about 10 years old. They came out with a Chuck E. Cheese version of that, which no matter if you were a boy or a girl, you could use it. And then I realized that cooking with a light bulb was pretty much crap from the start. Okay, there's the Barney doll that I had back then, although I don't remember it ever talking. But it looks just like the one I used to have, and my parents claim I did have the talking one, so I'll just have to take their word for it. The Little People Farm. Oh man, do I remember that. I believe I actually got it for Christmas that year in '93. I used to play with it quite a bit. I remember those tiny little farm animals. You know, back then, children didn't have to have a cell phone or an iPad to keep themselves entertained. We had actual toys that you used your actual imagination with. Now, the one next to it, the Action Sounds Garage, I want to say I maybe had that, but but I also want to say I didn't. But it does look familiar, and it does look like something I would have wanted back then. By the way, I sort of screwed up with my page count earlier. We're actually going to be looking at 31 pages because I just found this one I forgot about. This is the Bumbleball. You can see that on the left there. I remember when those came out, although I thought they came out in the early part of '94, but anyway, at that time, I wanted one like nothing else. And so my dad took me to just about every toy store in Greensboro and even in Winston-Salem, and nobody had them. Yeah, because they were that popular. It was kind of a big thing at the time to have a Bumbleball. And I finally got one eventually. Don't have it anymore, unfortunately. I wish I did, because I searched for them on eBay a few months ago, and you can see right there that Bumbleballs in 1993 were being sold for $13. Well, those original Bumbleballs from the 90s are now being sold on eBay for around $40, so They must be worth something nowadays. Okay, there's nothing really particular here I want to show, but I just thought this was an interesting page to look at all the artsy stuff being offered here, like the Crayola 96 Crayon case. I remember in 1994, I guess, I bought a giant package of Toys R Us magic markers that I used for years. In fact, I kept them up until I was about 16 or 17. When I gave it to some good friends of mine who I guess still have them. So it'd be interesting if after 20 years you can still draw with them. And here's the Nickelodeon page on this catalog. I never had any of these, but I certainly remember a lot of this, especially Gak. Gosh, who could forget Gak? Don't remember the Nickelodeon Power Painter or the Mix and Spin, but I remember the Color Rider. I remember seeing it advertised on TV. Yes, there's a lot of color, isn't it? Yes. Ah, yes, Connects. Who could forget these? This was actually the year Connects came out. I remember they were a big thing back then. I'm not even sure if they still make them. I know they were at least 10 years ago. But yeah, I always wanted to build that Ferris wheel there, which I never did realize that dream, unfortunately, mainly because I didn't get Connects until 2003, and I really didn't do much with them. I think I still got one piece of Connects lying around in my pants drawer, of all places, so, yeah. That Fisher-Price tape recorder on the bottom right there of the page, I actually did have back then, and I used it quite a bit, but for a reason you wouldn't expect a 3-year-old to use it. You see, back in 93, 94, our car, we didn't even know what a Honda was, believe it or not. Our car was a 1986 or a 1987 Nissan Sentra. It was a dark blue color. It was a decent little car, but it didn't have a tape player built in it. All it had was just an AM/FM radio, but nothing else. So I couldn't listen to my tapes in the car, and believe it or not, as a 3-year-old, my favorite artist was the Eagles. I absolutely loved listening to Hotel California with my dad in his old 1986 Nissan pickup truck, which had a tape player in it, but our actual car did not have a tape player. So what I would do was I would take that Fisher-Price tape recorder into that Sentra while I was riding with my parents, and they would let me do this, and I would just start playing my tapes on that tape player in the car. The redneck style, I guess you could say. and it worked until 1994, August 94, when we upgraded to a 1994 Honda Accord, which was pretty much identical to my current 95 Accord, which, of course, both had a tape player. And on the left of that is something I certainly remember, the VTech Master Video Painter. That's just something you would plug into your TV. It was pretty much like Mario Paint, I suppose, and you could draw stuff on your TV with that giant pad. And I ought to get myself one of them just to review on camera. In the spirit of the season, I figure it would be appropriate to show this item. Who remembers the Talk Boy, straight from the movie Home Alone 2, one of my all-time favorite movies? That's the deluxe Talk Boy there. For $30, you could have your own Talk Boy, just like Kevin had in Home Alone 2. And in fact, I actually had one of those, although I didn't have it in 1993. I didn't get one until, I want to say 1998. Unfortunately, I don't have it anymore, and I don't have the tape that went with it either, which I would have loved to have transferred to digital. But it was a very unique device, and just like in the movie, it had a feature where you could slow your voice down. And that Talk Boy was, I guess, pretty much a symbol of the early 90s, and that's one of the reasons why I love them so much. And another interesting item on here, of course I never had this, is a Street Fighter II tabletop game, just straight from the video game, and it was pretty much like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, I suppose, by look from what I'm seeing. So yeah, that looked kind of interesting. Golden Sight and Sound books. I had a lot of those, and the off-brand versions as well. Funny thing is, I would never ever read them. All I would do was just play with the buttons and see what sounds they'd make. And up top there is something called a TV Teddy. Never had one of those, but it's an interesting concept. He interacts with his own videotape and encourages kids to count along, sing a song, and more. So apparently, from what I'm reading, it was pretty much an interactive VHS tape, which I'm curious to know how that actually worked, because I can understand how a DVD could do that, but not a VHS tape. So that was some pretty good technology for 20 years ago. And here's some of the games that kids played with 20 years ago. One thing I find kind of interesting is the Pinball Warrior thing on the left there. Because I don't think I had that particular one, but I remember throughout the 90s I had various tabletop pinball machines, and none of them were anything special, believe it or not. They were very junky, just nothing but plastic, and it wouldn't take much for them to break on you. So yeah, they were not the best built toys in the world. And the 3-in-1 tournament table at the bottom, I never had that, but I definitely remember seeing the commercials for those all throughout my childhood. You could play pool, table tennis, or glide hockey. You I think, just swap the pieces around, which was a very, very cool concept. Unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to play with because I was pretty much an only child. I did have 2 older half-brothers, but I was pretty much raised as an only child, plus I didn't have friends back then. Here again is that easel I had back then, the FisherPrice easel. It was just right for preschoolers. Easy, clean chalkboard. I forgot about the chalkboard. I just now remembered about that. And that was always fun to play with, and it seemed like it had a built-in desk too. Now the rest of the stuff on this page I didn't have, but I did have similar stuff though, and I'm referring to those tents up top, like they were little playhouses, I suppose. I never had any of those particular ones, but I remember for Christmas in 1991, of course I had to have my picture taken with it because I don't remember it. It was too long ago, but I had a Sesame Street playhouse that I used for many, many years. And here again is the Grow With Me table that I had back then that I loved and adored and ate most of my food on back then. And also, up at the top left, you see something called a country cottage. I always wanted something like that. Well, the boy version, of course, but I never got one. I always wanted a little playhouse to play in, but I never got one, unfortunately. But I certainly do remember wanting one, and that wheeled teeter-totter looked like it would have been fun, but again, I was pretty much an only child, so I didn't have anyone to play with me. Sigh. Ah, yes, this certainly takes me back to my childhood. I used to have one of those Jeeps. Now, mine was actually a candy apple red color, and it's not in this catalog, unfortunately, but I got mine back in the early part of '94, and I absolutely loved that thing. It was made by Power Wheels, and I would drive that all around our property like crazy, and I used it for years until I was about, I guess, 7 or 8, and it never failed me. I always had all kinds of fun with it. And also, I want to point out the Barbie Lamborghini at the bottom right. I like the look on that girl's face. It looks like she's saying, "Hey, guess where I'm calling from? My toy car!" Oh boy, these were certainly crap. Throughout my childhood, I always got these remote control cars, and always expecting the best out of them, thinking they would be the best thing I've ever owned. But I was quite wrong. Instead, they were complete junk. They would always fall apart, and the worst part was the radio control part of it was the worst part, because there wasn't much radio control about it. the signal was so weak that you pretty much had to stand directly behind the car and move with it as you controlled it, which was pretty pointless if you ask me. Okay, let's be honest. What kid in the 90s did not have a toy fire truck? I think not just in the 90s, but pretty much every decade in the 20th century. I certainly remember having one. I don't remember what mine looked like. It might have looked like this one. But, yeah, a toy fire truck was pretty much a necessity when you were a kid. As well as an ambulance and a police car, but those were optional. And I might have had that farm thing at the bottom, I don't know. It looks kind of familiar, but I can't say for sure. Now here's some stuff every boy in the 90s, including me, always loved to see and play with. Some old, car toys, like the Matchbox motors and the Motor City Car Wash. I want to say I had those, but again, I just cannot remember. I certainly do remember seeing them advertised on TV, because I always loved the concept of having like a tiny city in your own little bedroom. And the Hot Wheels Crisscross Crash set, I think I had one of those too. But yeah, pretty much Hot Wheels were my thing back then, and pretty much any kind of toy car, because hey, I was a boy. Come on. Alright, here's some more toys for boys that I never had, but I think I wanted a lot of these. I certainly remember the Stretch Armstrong. From what I heard, like I said, I never had one, but from what I heard, they were actually not the most well-built toys imaginable. I think the elastic would easily wear out on them, and that Ghost Striker X-16 looks really cool. And of course, G.I. Joe! And because of that, my 400th video will probably now be my last video. Great. I had one job. Oh yeah, now we're talking. We're now in the video game section of the catalog. Now unfortunately, back then I did not own a video game console. I wouldn't own one until 1997 when I got my Sega Saturn. But I certainly remember my brother having a Super Nintendo back then and seeing all the commercials on TV for him, and it was just an awesome time for video games. And right here we see those Tiger handheld games. Oh boy. Where do I begin? Now these I did have, and let me just say, if you're looking for a really cheap game that claims to be just as good as the console version, but really isn't, and it makes you want to pull your hair out and scream in pain, probably because you just pulled your hair out, then the Tiger handheld electronic games were for you. I remember having them, and I don't know why I kept buying them. They were such junk. They never worked right. You could barely see the screen. And I see something here, a magnifier light for the Tiger Electronics games for $7. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I also see Every Cheater's Dream on the bottom right, the Game Genie. I think I see one for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. And here's the Super Nintendo section of the catalog. It shows off a lot of the games that were new at the time. And on the bottom left you see the actual Super Nintendo system. You could, it was a Super Nintendo control set. It's super advanced 16-bit system, 3D graphics over 32,000 colors, digital stereo sound, base unit, and one controller for $89.99. And for $139.99 you could get the Super NES system. I'm not sure how that worked, but I guess you got a few little goodies to go with it, some accessories. And I remember most of these games, believe it or not. And while I'm talking about video games at Toys R Us, it was a very, very cool thing to get a video game from Toys R Us back then, because you would go there, and you go into the video game section, but they wouldn't have the actual video games there. You could just, because you couldn't just go in there, find your video game, and say, "That one!" Thank you, Jay. No, instead what you had to do was you had to take this little yellow ticket that had the price tag on it and the UPC barcode, and it would have a picture of the game and the information about the game, and you would take it to the register, give it to the cashier, you would pay for it, and then right there at the entrance and exit of the actual store, there was this little corner of the store. It was like a little alcove where you would walk up to this other register. You would hand him your receipt, and the guy would go into this little room, this little glass room, full of nothing but video games. It was pretty much any 90s kid's paradise in that room, even though we never got to go in there, obviously. And they would come back with the game you just bought. And I just think that was a very, very cool concept. It was simple, but sometimes the simple things are what's the most awesome. And as for the games in here, there's the original Star Fox. I think that really took advantage of the Mode 7 chip in the Super Nintendo. I don't remember Yoshi's Safari. I definitely remember Super Mario All-Stars. I have it for my current Super Nintendo. Mortal Kombat. I remember my dad had the cabinet version at his convenience store back in the mid-90s, and that was a lot of fun. And, oh gosh, Mario Paint. One of the few games that took advantage of the Super Nintendo mouse. And I actually got one of those for Christmas last year. I really need to do a video about that. It was very interesting. So, yeah, and I also see something here called Find It First at Toys R Us. We all know how important it is to be the first on your block to have the newest video game. That's why we've created Jeffrey's Express. We'll deliver the newest games to our store the day they break. We'll be first, so you'll be first. Wait a minute, the day they break? I don't want to get a game that's already been broken. It's my job to break them. My friend Gabe, aka GPPL here on YouTube, will really get a kick out of this section. Here's the Game Boy section. Back when the original 1989 Game Boy was still in style, you can get the Game Boy Basic set. It's Nintendo Power in your hand, batteries included. You can get that for $49.99 or for $79.99. You could get the Game Boy with Tetris. And by the way, I absolutely cannot stand Tetris because ever since I was a kid, even now, I cannot get that game to play right. And it's my fault because I just don't know how to do it. And it's just way too hard for me. Yes, that's kind of pathetic, I know, but... And another thing I want to point out is back in the 90s, you had a variety of games to choose from, both for consoles and computers. And, I mean, just look at all these Game Boy games. Nowadays, if you go into a store to get a video game, all you're going to find mostly are first-person shooters, which is a concept of a game style that I've never really gotten into. But look here, look at all these Game Boy games. You got, Jurassic Park, you got your Mortal Kombat, and you got, like, little children's games like Speedy Gonzales and Super Mario Land and Zelda. You got a good variety back then. And it's sad that it can't be like that anymore. Sega does what Nintendo don't, so they said back then. Here is the Sega Genesis section of this catalog, or as you folks over in Europe call it, the Sega Mega Drive. I actually got one of these for my birthday. Actually not my birthday, for Christmas last year. But unfortunately, I've never really played much of it because I don't really have any place to hook them up. I actually got both the Model 1 and the Model 2. The one you're seeing in the catalog is the Model 2. You could get the Sega Genesis Core System, 16-bit stereo technology, includes base unit and one controller, for $89.99, and for $129.99 you could get the Genesis Sonic System. Toys R Us, you had one job. You didn't mention the blast processing. But for $19.99, you get the 6-button arcade pad and the Minister gun for $59.99. Unfortunately, out of this game selection, I currently only have the Mortal Kombat game. I've never really had much time to collect Genesis. But I remember a lot of these, though. I remember Echo the Dolphin, and don't really remember much else, but I'm new to the Sega Genesis scene, so please bear with me. Here's some more Sega stuff, including one of my personal favorites, the Sega Game Gear, which I bought one of those new back in 1997, and believe it or not, I still have it, and it still works perfectly. Don't have many games for it, but it's a very, very cool little game system, especially since it's color, and unfortunately it does eat up batteries, which is one of the reasons why it couldn't compete with the Game Boy. But none of these games I actually have, or ever have, so I'll have to look into getting those. And oh gosh, look at the bottom there, the Sega CD. Play interactive full-motion games with CD quality and awesome video. Include Sewer Short Game CD. Now that right there is why the system failed. Full-motion games. It was like watching a movie, actually. I mean, if you wanted to watch a movie, you wouldn't play it on a game console. But still, though, it was a very, very cool concept, especially with it being one of the first consoles to use a CD for that kind of stuff. I'm losing track of my mind right now. So yeah, but I would actually like to have one just for collection's sake, I suppose. And here's the bargain basement games that Toys R Us was selling back then, for Sega and the Nintendo NES, actually, not the Super Nintendo, the regular old NES. And at the bottom left there, you can see the Model 2 NES that was coming out at the time. It says 8-bit technology for a perfect first Nintendo, includes base unit and one controller, not available in all stores until November the 10th, and it was only $50, not a bad deal. Unfortunately, the thing I've never really understood about the Model 2 NES is the fact that it doesn't have composite out. It's just RF, and that's kind of difficult to me. Cause especially nowadays with high definition LED televisions that are kind of hard to hook up to in that way. So you pretty much need composite, and plus it's hard to make game review videos cause you can't really plug it into a capture card very well, can you? But yeah, and these bargain basement games are actually some of the best ones in my opinion. The ones that don't get much attention, but they're awesome just in their own way. And folks, we have now reached the back page and the back cover of the Toys R Us catalog. It features a letter from Charles Lazarus, chairman and founder of Toys R Us. My commitment to you, our valued customer, is to bring you the largest selection of toys at guaranteed low prices. So committed that if you find a lower price, we'll match it. And our holiday catalog with up to $491 in coupon savings will help you to save even more. Selection, price, and value. That's my commitment to you. And to you and your family, my best wishes for a happy holiday season. And there's also something here called, look for the TV special Nick and Noel on Thanksgiving night. Check your local TV listing for time and station. I don't remember that. I guess it was some cartoon. I must have thought it was for girls or something. And you could apparently get a stuffed animal version of that for $10. There's the prices right there, and this features the locations for some Toys R Us stores up in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, these aren't for Greensboro, but Montgomeryville, 2 Airport Square, across from Montgomery Mall, and Whitehall's 955 Grape Street, across from Lee Valley Mall. So yeah, that's all there is of this catalog. Let's go back to video now so we can say our farewells for the night. And that's it. That's the 1993 Toys R Us catalog. And believe it or not, I actually have another old Toys R Us catalog. I don't think I have it around here, unfortunately, but this one's from 1995. and it actually features some old computer games that I actually remember. But the one I'm really after is 94 because that's my favorite year. But unfortunately, I haven't really been able to find one. There is one on eBay, but it's being sold for $80 because logic. So, I just want to conclude this video, my 400th video, by saying thank you everybody, to all my subscribers, all the friends I've met here on YouTube over the past several years for supporting me through all this. I've had a lot of fun doing this, and believe me, my videos are never going to end. I'm going to do this as long as I possibly can. So stay tuned for even more goofiness, so to say. So, and with that said, I'm actually 1 hour away from turning 24 years old. Although technically I was born at 11:30 on the 27th. So, yeah. And I also want to wish all of y'all a very, very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. Hope you have a very, very good one. And so for now, Billy Core signing off.